Today I'm going to show you how to access some of the best models that exist completely for free and locally on your own computer. We're going to be doing that in just a few very simple lines of code using Hugging Face and LangChain. I'm going to show you how to use various Hugging Face models for free inside of a Python application, and then we'll connect them to LangChain so we can build something even more interesting. With that said, let's get into the video. So quickly, let's get into some information that's important to understand. We're going to be using something called transformers. Now, this is a free open source package that you can install with Python using pip, if you're familiar with that, and it allows you to utilize tons of different models that come from Hugging Face. Now, Hugging Face is a platform, you can see it right here, that has all kinds of open source models available. Some of them you do need to pay for or you need some specific access, but most of them are completely free and you can just download them and use them on your own computer. Now, what the Transformers package does is just make it extremely easy to access these free Hugging Face models and to download them and use them on your computer. You'll see here that in just a few lines of code, you can run pretty much any of these models, assuming you have the correct hardware. And if you wanted to go further, you could even fine-tune these models and add a bunch of advanced configurations. So we're going to be using Transformers, and we're going to use this in combination with something called LangChain. Now, LangChain is another Python package that just makes it a lot easier to work with LLMs. So if you wanted to use one of these transformer models, you can connect this with LangChain and then add things like memory, connect multiple models together, and I'll show you the basics of that in this video. So that's the information. Now we're going to go ahead and start getting all of this set up. Now, first things first, we're just going to make an account on Hugging Face. This is because a lot of these models require that you accept some terms or their license agreement before you're able to actually download them and use them. So go to Hugging Face. I'll leave this link in the description. You should be able to go up here somewhere in the top right-hand corner and just make a new account. Once you make a new account, we're going to go to Access Tokens. We're just going to leave this page open and we'll come back to it in 1 second. So to get started here, we need to set up our environment to be able to execute these different Python packages. Now, this does take a second, so just bear with me. Once the environment is configured, then it's very easy to write the code. Now, you'll notice that what I'm using here is PyCharm. Now, that's the IDE that I'm going to use for this video, and I actually have a long-term partnership going with them, so if you would like to use PyCharm as well, which I would definitely recommend, then you can click the link down below, and I can give you a 3-month free extended trial of the PyCharm Professional Edition. There's a Community Edition, which is completely free, and then there's the Professional Edition, which obviously has a lot of other features, and specifically if you're into data science, you'll see there's a lot of features here that can help you out. For example, it has an integration with Hugging Face directly, works very well with TensorFlow, PyTorch, Conda, Git, Jupyter Notebooks, databases, all kinds of stuff, and you'll see some of the great features in this video of PyCharm. Anyways, you can use whatever IDE that you want, but if you do want to check this out, again, I have those links below. Okay, so first things first, we want to create that virtual environment. So what I'm going to do is open up my terminal here, and from my terminal, I'm going to execute a command that will create this environment for me. Now, you do need Python installed in order for this to work, and what the virtual environment will do is just create an isolated area where we can have the dependencies specifically for this project. So in order to do that, we're going to type Python -m venv and then venv. Now, I'm running on Windows, so I'm using the Python command, but if you're on Mac or Linux, you can use the Python 3 command in case you get any errors with this. What this does is use venv to create a new virtual environment called venv or venv, and then once this step is finished, we're going to activate that virtual environment. So you've seen here that in my editor, I just opened a new folder. I just called it HF tutorial, and then you'll notice that a new directory is created called venv. That's my virtual environment, and the next step is to activate the virtual environment so that we're using it when we install various dependencies. So to do this manually from the command line, you're going to write the following command, and this is if you're on Windows. It's going to be / the name of your virtual environment, which should be venv if you followed this command, /scripts with a capital, /activate. If you type this, you should see that you get a prefix with the name of your virtual environment in your terminal. Now, if you're on Mac or Linux, the command will be different and it will be source, again, / the name of your virtual environment, /, and then this time it's going to be bin with a lowercase, and then activate. This will then activate the virtual environment for you. And if you're working inside of PyCharm and you want to use the correct interpreter, you can press this button down here, and then you can simply go to add new interpreter, add local interpreter, press on existing, and then select the interpreter that's in your current directory. So you can see HF tutorial, VE scripts, python.exe, press OK, and then it will select that and you'll see that it pops up down here. And now all of your autocomplete will work with those packages. Now, when you want to run your Python code, you simply type Python and then the name of the file if you called it main.py, and then you can hit enter. And as long as you're in the virtual environment, then all of this will work. Okay. Next step, we're going to make a new file inside of our directory called requirements.txt. Now, this is where we're going to put the various requirements that we need in order to work with the transformers and LangChain library. So inside of here, we're going to type transformers, if we spell that correctly. We're going to do LangChain, and we're going to add LangChain dash, and then this is going to be Hugging Face, which will allow us the integration with LangChain. Okay, so these are the three main packages that you need. Now that you have the requirements.txt file created from your virtual environment, you're going to type the command pip install -r and then requirements.txt. This will read the requirements.txt file and install all of those in your virtual environment. So I'm going to go ahead and press enter. You can see these are all cached because I've installed them previously, and then they will get installed. If you're on Mac or Linux, again, you can try the command pip3 in case that one doesn't work for you. Okay, so all of that's been installed, and the next step here is to simply get our Hugging Face token. Now, we need the Hugging Face token because a lot of the models just require that you accept some license agreement. They're free to use, but you have to essentially check a box, and that's connected to your Hugging Face account. So if you try to pull certain models, it will give you an error, and that's because you haven't added the token. So what we're going to do is from our user access tokens, again, you can just go to Hugging Face, create a new account, press on your profile, press here on access tokens, and simply create a new one. So if I go create new token, I can just call this Python 2 or something. Just give this a read mode. You just give it read and press on create token. Copy this token. Obviously, don't leak it to anyone like I am right now. And then what we're going to do is type the following. We're going to say Hugging Face -CLI, and then, sorry, we're not going to paste the token. We're going to say login. Okay, now this command will work as long as you've installed transformers in your virtual environment. So I'm going to hit enter, and you're going to notice that it simply asks for my token. So I'm just going to paste the token inside of here and then hit enter. And then I'm just going to say yes for my Git credential. When you paste this, you're not going to see the token. So just paste it and then hit enter to go to the next line. Okay, so now the token has been added. You can see the currently active token is the name of the token. And now we'll be able to pull those models and kind of accept the terms and conditions. Okay, so we're almost done here. That is pretty much the environment setup. Now what we're going to do is make a new file. So I'm going to go new file. I'm going to call this main.py. And inside of here, we're going to write the code that will allow us to start using some transformer models. So just bear with me while I write some basic code, and then we can explain it after. Okay, so first thing we're going to do here is we're going to say from transformers import, and then we're going to import pipeline, okay? Now, pipeline is a simplified way of running various models. If you want to do this in a more advanced way, there are ways to do that, but I'm going to keep it simple for this video. Now, after that, I'm going to define my model. So I'm going to say model is equal to, you can see I'm getting some autocomplete here in PyCharm, and I'm actually not going to use that. I'm just going to say pipeline, and then I'm going to paste in here the following. Okay, just bear with me. Summarization, and then model is equal to the following. So believe it or not, this is actually as easy as it is to run a model inside of Python from transformers or from Hugging Face. What I'm doing is I'm using this thing called pipeline. Pipeline just automatically sets everything up for me, and all I have to do is specify the task. So there's various different tasks like summarization, text classification, text generation, and then the model that I want to use for this task. I'm going to show you how you get the models in just 1 second, but this is one that we can use for summarizing text. Okay, we specify the model, and then all we have to do is say response is equal to model, and then we pass, in this case, text to summarize, and it will literally just summarize the text for us using this machine learning model. The first step is it's going to download this. It's going to take a second to download. Once it's downloaded, it will then just summarize it for us when we call this model function, and then we can print out the response. Okay, so believe it or not, that's literally all you need to do. Now there's some more setup steps and things that I'll talk about in a second, but for now, I just want to run this code and make sure it works. So manually from your terminal, you can just go Python and then main.py, assuming you're in your virtual environment. But because I'm in PyCharm, I'm just going to use the run button here, and it will just run it for me in my terminal. And let's see if we get any errors after running this. Okay, so you can see this did indeed work and it gave me this summary text. Now it doesn't really make a lot of sense because I just passed something that doesn't make sense to the model. Like it was only 3 words, so it didn't really know how to interpret this. But then you can see that it said summary text and then it gave me kind of this random summary of something that's not really relevant to this. If we had larger text, it would actually summarize it properly. So don't worry about that. This is just a quick example. Now for you, this probably took a second to run because you needed to download the model first. Once the model is downloaded, it will be stored on your machine, and then you can use it very quickly after that. Now you'll also notice that we're getting some kind of warnings. I'll show you how to mute those in 1 second, and you'll notice that it says that the device is using CPU. Now this is the main thing I want to focus on. How do we get this to use your GPU? Because obviously if you have a GPU, you want to use that, and it's going to be hundreds, if not thousands of times faster. So let me show you how we do that. And we'll talk about also how we get different Hugging Face models. Just bear with me, there's a lot of stuff to cover. Okay, so first, let's look at how we can run these models using our GPU. Now, in order to do that, you are going to need an NVIDIA GPU, or at least that's what I'm going to recommend because that's what works the best. Now, in order for your NVIDIA GPU to be used for this, you need to download and install CUDA. Now, I'm just going to go to the CUDA website. I'll link this in the description as well, but you can simply type CUDA Toolkit, and then you're just going to download that. Okay, so if you go CUDA Toolkit on Google, you're going to need to download this. Again, it's only available for Linux or Windows. And then once CUDA is downloaded and installed, you'll be able to move on to the next step. So again, if you want this to work for your GPU, download CUDA. The link will be in the description. Okay, once CUDA is downloaded, what you're going to want to do is restart any terminal instance that you have. So close your IDE, reopen it, and you're going to type the following command just to verify that it's installed. You're going to type nv cc -- version. If you do this, you should see some kind of output and it will tell you what version of CUDA that you have. Okay, so in my case, I have 12.6. You probably will have 12.8 or something more recent if you just downloaded it like today when you're watching this video. So now that CUDA is installed, we can move on to the next step, which is going to be to install PyTorch specifically for GPU. So I'm going to copy in a command, which again, I will leave in the description, and it's going to look like this. Sorry, let me just get out of this because for some reason, when I copied this, it automatically ran, which I don't want it to do. But you can see that it says pip install torch, torch vision, torch audio, and then I specify the index URL. And at the end of the index URL, you'll see this number, CU12 something. Now, in your case, if you're downloading 12.8 for CUDA, you're going to change this to 12.8. In my case, it was 12.6, so I'm going to download 12.6. Okay, what this is going to do is install PyTorch for GPU for you in your virtual environment, and then you'll be good to go in order to use this for your GPU. So again, this command will be in the description, but simply hit enter here, install this in your virtual environment, and then you'll be good to go. Okay, so that was successfully installed, so I can go ahead and close the terminal. And what we're going to do to verify that this is working is we're going to paste the following code in our Python program. Now, all we need to do is import torch, and then we're simply just going to check if our GPU is available and what the name of that GPU is. So all we have to do is just print out torch.cuda.isAvailable and torch.cuda.getDeviceName. We're specifying index 0, which should be the first GPU. If you had multiple GPUs, then you would use various indexes to access them. But this is what we're going to do to verify that we do have this installed properly. So I'm going to run my code, and we're just going to look at the top of the program and ensure that it says true, and it says the name of our GPU, which it is doing right here. Now, by default, if this is installed, this should start using the GPU. So we'll say the device is set to CUDA 0. That references that you are using the GPU at index 0. But if you want to manually specify to use the GPU, then what you can do is you can specify device is equal to, and then if you wanted CPU, you could specify CPU. If you wanted GPU, you can simply put 0 here, or you can put in quotes 0. I don't believe it matters, or 1. Okay, and then you're specifying, hey, I want to use device 0. Device 0 is your GPU. So you don't need these lines of code now, but that will verify that this is indeed working. So now that we've got this running on GPU, we want to learn about how to run various models, because in the title, I told you there are tons of free models that you can use. So any model that you want to run, you can get from Hugging Face. Now, notice here in PyCharm, there's actually a Hugging Face button, and this tells me all of the models that I currently have downloaded. So you can see that there's a bunch of models that I have installed on my system, everything from Mistral. I think I have a Llama model, these Facebook models, and you might be wondering, how the heck do you know which ones to get and how to use them? Well, you can get that from the Hugging Face model directory. Okay, now in PyCharm, funny enough, it actually has a cool feature where you can right click here and click on Insert HF Model. When you do this, it will open up the models from Hugging Face and you can browse them directly in the IDE. But in case you're not using PyCharm, I want to show you how to do this more manually. So if you go to your browser and you go to Hugging Face, and we just go back to the main website here, what you're able to do is press on models. Let me just wait for this thing to go away so we can see it. Okay, so if you click on models, from here, you can specify or kind of search the models based on which ones work with the Transformers library. So if you go up to the top here and you press on libraries, and then you select Transformers because that's what we're using here, and then you go back to tasks, now you're going to be able to specify by task or sort by task while also looking at the ones that work with Transformers. So anything that you want probably exists here in Hugging Face. For example, you have object detection, text to image, text classification, and the easiest ones to get started with are the natural language processing ones. So for example, if I'm looking for text summarization, I click on summarization, and then I can sort this by trending or by, for example, most downloads, and I can view these models. So if I look at this one, which I believe is the one that I'm already using, you'll see here that we can scroll through. It gives us an example of exactly how to use this from our code. And you can also press this button right here that says use the model, click on Transformers, and it shows you the code, and you can read the documentation directly here. So if you're wondering how do you get the models, that's how you get them. Now I just want to show you that if I click into a random model here, let me find some other one. It's possible that at some points, some of these are gated. Now, I'm having trouble finding a gated one right now, but sometimes you will need to go directly to the model website here, and you'll need to press a button that says like accept license agreement. So if you get an error when you're trying to use these models, it's possible that there is a license agreement that you need to accept that you haven't yet accepted. So you would just need to go to the model page and then press accept when you're signed in with your account. That's it, okay? In my case, I'm going to keep using the summarization one for right now, but you can use any model that you want. And again, you can filter them here. And if you find one you want to use, just check if it has that license agreement and just check that before you start trying to download it so you don't get any errors. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to assume that you've got this running properly on your computer and you understand that if you want to pick a model, you go to Hugging Face and you can read through all of the models that are there and you can pretty much just put them in the pipeline. And it will almost always tell you how to use the model from Hugging Face, so you can just directly read the documentation and you can see what task and what model to be using. Now, what I'm going to do is just paste in a simple example here where we now go and we connect this model to LangChain, which allows us to make this a little bit more advanced and use it in a more real world application. So what I'm going to do is just paste in this example. It's not very long. It's just 20 lines of code and quickly walk through it. So you can see that what I've done here is I've imported Hugging Face pipeline from LangChain Hugging Face. This allows me to wrap a Hugging Face model as a LangChain model, which then lets me connect it in a LangChain chain. If you're unfamiliar with LangChain, I actually have a tutorial on it. I'll put it up on screen right now. But the point is it allows you to use multiple models together and make more advanced applications and just deal with LLMs. Now for this pipeline, I'm using a text generation pipeline with Mistral. Mistral is a larger model. You require 16 gigabytes of VRAM to use this. So I'm just giving you an example, and I've specified the maximum length and that it's okay to truncate the response. I've then created my LLM by wrapping my model in this Hugging Face pipeline. Then what I've done, let me just close this here, is I've created a prompt template where I've specified some variables that I want to embed inside of here. So I want to explain some topic in detail for a blank or age-year-old to understand. Then what I've done is I've created a LangChain chain. This chain takes the template and essentially fills it in with the correct variables and then passes it to my LLM. Then I ask the user for a topic and some age, and I execute the chain. So I say response is equal to chain, which I've created right here, .invoke, and then the variables that I want to pass here, so topic and age, I put inside of a Python dictionary. So if I now go and run this code, let me just open this up from the bottom of my screen. It will take a second, and then I should be asked to enter the topic and the age, and then in that case, I'm able to continue and get the output. Okay, so for the topic, I'm going to go with quantum computing. I don't know if that's spelled correctly, but that's fine. And then for the age, I'll go with maybe 10 or something, okay? And then we're just going to wait 1 second. If you get this output or these errors, don't worry. I'm going to show you how you can mute them in just 1 second, but they're just giving you some logs on what's going on. So this can take a second to generate because this is a very large model and it is utilizing my GPU. So once that's finished, I'll be right back and you'll see the response. Okay, so we just got the response. To be honest with you, I don't think a 10-year-old would be able to understand this, but whatever. It gave me the reply and you can see it's showing up now in my terminal. Okay, so that's one quick example. I will leave this code available via GitHub in the description in case you want to check it out. But what I want to do now is just copy in a more advanced example and show you another cool thing that you could build using transformers. Okay, so first things first, I want to direct your attention to the following 2 lines of code on line 4 and line 6. If you don't want to see those red error messages or the warnings pop up, then you can use this, okay? So this is simply importing the set verbosity error. Verbosity is like how much you want to show, how much detail you want to see. And when you call this function, it will toggle that. So it will essentially turn it off. So you're not going to see those error messages popping up, okay? So just keep that in mind. That's probably something important that you want to know. This code will be available from the description again. And what I've set up here is actually kind of a more advanced pipeline using LangChain that uses 3 different models from Hugging Face. So I have one that does summarization. I have another one that does a refinement of the summarization. And then I have one that does question answering. The question answering is quite cool. It takes in a bunch of context, and then what it will do is answer questions based on that. So my idea here is that I'm going to have some large text that I want to summarize, and then afterwards I'm going to allow the user to ask questions about that summary. So I've set up a summary template where I said I want to summarize the following text in a certain amount of length, so a certain amount of characters. Okay, and then what I do is I create a summarization chain where I essentially take the template, I pass it to my summarizer, which is a Hugging Face pipeline, and then after that I take that output and I pass that to my refiner, which is another model. So I'm using the chain to kind of pass execution between different models. I then get some text that I want to summarize. I get the length, so short, medium, or long. And then what I do is I invoke my chain by passing the text to summarize and the length. After that's finished, I print out the summary, and then I just go into a while loop where I ask the user if they want to ask any questions. Anytime they ask a question, I pass that to my QA pipeline where I pass in the question and the context, which is simply the summary, and then I print out the answer, okay? So again, I'll leave this code in the description, but let's run this and just see how it works. And I'm just going to grab some large piece of text here about AI that I will kind of pass into this in 1 sec when it starts running. Okay, so it asked me for the text to summarize, so let's paste that. This is just a bunch of information about AI. And then I'm going to say enter the length. Let's go with medium length. Okay, let's give this a second to generate the summary. So it's given us the summary there, and then we can ask a question. So I'm going to say, where is AI used? And then you can see Netflix and Amazon. I'm going to say, how important is AI? One of the most significant technology advancements in the 21st century, and it's pulling that all out of this context. So I'm just going to type exit now to get out of that, and then we'll quit the program. And there you go. That is the tutorial on how to use transformers and LangChain to really use any model you want completely for free locally on your own computer. I know that was a lot of information, but I wanted to make sure that this was valuable to you. If you liked the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in another one.